Okay, another dot torture video on the internet, exactly what the interwebs needed. One thing I thought that could be missing maybe from all the dot torture videos on YouTube is specifically speaking to why each stage is important, what you can and can't get out of each stage, and maybe how to push yourself on your dot torture drills. And I think dot torture is a really good thing for people who shoot competitively, or maybe they shoot on a shot timer just to increase their combat effectiveness, add some speed, be able to gauge the speed and measure it. It's easy to measure accuracy on the target, but it's hard to measure speed with your concept of time. So shot timers are great for that, but what tends to happen to people that shoot on shot timers a lot is they start to fight the clock instead of fighting the target. Okay, I tell myself that, I tell my students that all the time: stop fighting the clock, fight the target. Okay, you start falling in love with every hundredth of a second that falls out. You'll start sacrificing accuracy that you shouldn't be sacrificing. It's the hardest thing for me not to do, shooting on a shot timer, because I'm competitive with myself, with my peers, and I want to see, okay, can I get that next hundredth of a second off? So what shooting dot torture will do is bring you back to center and still let you practice the mechanics, the techniques, drawing your weapon and doing all that stuff, going to multiple targets. All that stuff is really good. But it forces you to shoot at an accuracy level, I mean shooting at a little dot, that makes you slow down and focus on the fundamentals. Those of you that have watched my other videos, well, I have an hour-plus long video, or maybe not quite an hour video, of talking briefly about all the fundamentals and techniques of marksmanship, combat effectiveness, and I talk about, and when I get into trigger pull, but especially when I talk about sight picture, there's these competing sort of mentalities where it's like, you know, you got to focus on the target to see what he's doing with his hands. Is he dropping a gun? Is he pulling a gun out? Is he pulling a knife out, or whatever? You need to be cognizant of the target, so just point shoot. Okay, you're not going to use your sights in the real world. That's what people tell you. And then you get the other side of the spectrum, where is if you don't know where your front sight is exactly all the time, it's not imperfectly in focus, then you won't be able to hit your bad guy anyway, okay, especially under combat stress. And really both are true. There is a time and place to point shoot. If somebody's 3 to 5 feet away from you, 7 feet, 10 feet away from you, you don't need your sights. You just need a round on target as quick as possible, because it's not going to take very long for that person to get lucky if they've got a firearm. And then again, if they're at 25 yards with your wife in their arms and a gun to her head, and you got to hit them in the face, you need to be capable of doing that, and it's going to take a clear front sight right in the middle of the forehead, slow steady squeeze, maybe even controlling some exasperating breathing and heart rate in that moment too. So there's a time for and a place for both, so you need to train for both. But the real world probably requires a little bit of both. You need to be able to know a flash sight picture as you're in your draw stroke coming past you, where you find that front sight in your awareness, and then another, again, muscle memory will land that in pretty close to sight picture and alignment anyway, if you draw and focus on it perfectly every time. So all that to say that dot torture sort of makes you do that. It's a chance to go back, and it's a lot, still practicing your draw stroke and all that, forcing you to remember how to get a clear front sight on a very small target and shoot with perfection, precision, okay? Taking designated marksman shots with a handgun, which is very unlikely to happen in the real world, but if somebody's behind what they think's cover or concealment and you only have a small area of them to aim at, it takes precision. If they have a hostage in front of them, it takes precision to land that shot effectively. So this will allow you to focus on the techniques, but also force you to still maintain fundamentals, or the ability to do fundamentals perfectly. Sight alignment, sight picture, and trigger control. So it's just something good. It's not your only tool in your toolbox. It shouldn't be the only course of fire you ever shoot. It shouldn't be the only thing you ever do, but it's kind of conveniently set up to use a 50-round box of ammo. It doesn't require to shoot really fast, so as long as you can come from the holster, you can do this at most pistol ranges. And even if you can't come from the holster, coming off the counter and doing this is still, while it's not training draw stroke, it's still going to train you some other things that are very important. So I think everybody that shoots with the intent of it being a defensive or maybe an offensive capability, if you're police or military, you should learn to do this. You should do this as part of your learning. It should be a tool in your toolbox. So without further ado, I'm going to set this up really quick. The first stage is a 5-round slow shot. So I'm going to throw 5 rounds into this magazine. I have an XD40 Tactical with Mec-Gar mags, so my magazines will only hold 13 rounds. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is load 10 rounds in this. This will take me through the first 2 stages. The first stage is you're going to draw and shoot 5 shots slow fire to kind of get you on target, so to speak, get you in the groove of shooting. And then you're going to shoot another 5 rounds 1 round per draw. So it's attaching a draw stroke to a round and doing that over again. And that's one of the unfortunate things you'll lose if you do this at a pistol range. It won't let you draw. You're having to come off the counter. But at least you're sort of on your own clock when you reach for the gun. Even if it's coming off on a counter, you're not just sitting up there and standing, okay, and then I'm going to decide to shoot a round. You're attaching that round to some sort of movement, which requires you to take a target and a gun with sights on them, put them together and shoot a precision shot and drill that over and over again. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot the first 2 stages, 5 shots slow fire, and then I'm going to shoot 5 shots, 1 shot per draw, and then we'll set the mags up for the next stage. Okay, so 5 rounds in hole number 1, all slow methodical fire. And one thing you should know is, okay, the whole point of this dot torture, not the whole point, but one of the biggest points to it is you control the distance and you control the time. Okay, so if your limits, if you're not pushing your limits are pushing you. So now with excess big dot sights on this, I can only go so far out before I lose the whole dot, and it defeats the purpose. So it is a closer range target. Then you control the time from there to increase and decrease difficulty as needed. If you are getting half of your shots in your circles, you need to get closer and slow down. Okay, don't worry about what everybody else in the range is thinking when you're shooting at 3 feet and everybody's trying to be the guy that runs it way out there and hits it, okay? You walk away from the range having actually spent your time and money on something beneficial. Don't worry about what everybody else is thinking. So 5 rounds in hole number 1 and then 5 rounds in hole number 2. The first 5 rounds all come from 1 draw. The second 5 rounds, one round per draw. Alright, 5 rounds in hole number 1, okay. Good group, but probably should have sped it up a little bit. It's a little too tight. And that sounds like a critique of something that we'd normally think of something good, but once again, I'm not just doing this for you, I'm doing this for me. So if I want to gain something out of this experience, I need to push myself a little bit more than I did there. Okay, so next one's going to be 5 rounds at target number 2 with 1 round per draw. That last one hung out there for a long time for some reason. I don't know what happened there. But so I got 5 and 1, 5 and 2. The next one I'm going to draw and shoot 1 on 3, 1 on 4. Go back to the holster and do that 4 times. 1 on 3, 1 on 4. Go back to the holster, shoot that 4 times. So that's going to require 8 rounds. So go ahead and get 8 rounds ready. While I'm yapping, I'll be loading these. Another good thing about the dot torture, if you're having to sacrifice your draw stroke training because your pistol range won't let you come from the draw, at least once you're out there, you can still get your target to target movement without, you know, shooting on someone else's lane, which most ranges aren't going to let you do anyway. And if you did, your buddy beside you probably doesn't appreciate it. So while they're still very close and within the same size as a real humanoid target would be, with their, you know, shooting one shirt pocket or the next, it's still forcing you to remove sight alignment on a horizontal plane and require it to shoot another round. So 1 on 3, 1 on 4, doing that 4 times for a total of 8 rounds. I don't know why I'm going so slow. I guess it's the camera. I don't know why. I feel like I'm just hanging out there forever in these shots. Okay, so 1 on 3, 1 on 4. Did that 4 times for a total of 8 rounds. The next one's going to be 5 rounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is just with your strong hand. So drawing and firing 5 rounds. Doesn't say slow. It intentionally says slow on the first target, but on this one, when you're shooting target number 5, it just says 5 shots with your strong hand. So I'm going to just do them at a speed that I feel like I'm getting something out of it without pulling them out of the circle. Okay, so 5 rounds on target number 5. Pulled one. some weird flinch, but it happens. We're human beings. It's the whole point of this thing. Up until that one I missed, it was a pretty tight group, and I probably should have been pushing it. And I didn't miss that one because I was pushing it. I missed it because I made a mistake, which that's still good. It's good to see yourself making mistakes so you have something to correct. But I would rather have missed it because I was pushing the speed a little bit more. So something to work on next time. This next one requires 16 rounds, and since I can't hold 16 rounds in one mag, I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 in this mag. Go ahead and get that in the weapon. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the second mag. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw and shoot 2 rounds on 6, go over to shoot 2 rounds on 7, and then back to the holster and do that a total of 4 times for 16 rounds. Now, after the second time, my magazine will be empty, so I'm going to go ahead and throw a combat reload in the mix for this to add a little bit of training. So this 8-round mag goes in my magazine holster. So 2 on 6, 2 on 7, holster, 2 on 6, 2 on 7, reload, holster, 2 on 6, 2 on 7, holster, 2 on 6, 2 on 7. In fact, instead of going to the holster after the reload, I'm going to go ahead and augment this since I'm doing a mag change and just go straight from the mag change back out to 6. So 2 on 6, 2 on 7. Too slow. Alright, and I should have one more go of this. Alright. Pulled one high. It's weird, I didn't feel like I did a mistake, but target says I did, the target never lies. So the next one's going to be 5 rounds, and this is the second to last relay. It's 5 rounds with your weak hand. Now, I see people train with their weak hand pretty regularly. I mean, enough people out there saying that you need to do it for people to take it seriously. The problem is a lot of people don't understand the point of training with your left hand. They understand that, hey, I may need to pull the trigger with my left hand, but then they'll go out, and I've even talked to a guy at Academy Sports who he was buying a left-handed holster, and I was buying the same holster of a right-handed to have at the range, and I was like, hey man, it must be good to be left-handed because your holsters are always in stock. The one I was looking for wasn't. And he said, actually, I'm right-handed. I'm just buying this to do some left-handed training. And I almost held my tongue, but then said, look, I'm a firearms instructor. I get what you're doing. I think it's great to train with your left hand, but why are you training with your left hand from a left-handed holster? Unless you know you're going to have surgery on this hand, it's going to be out of commission for a long time, and you're going to have to be able to draw with your left hand from the left side. Why not just train with your left hand from how you carry every day, if that's the point of your training? Yes, you might need to shoot with your left hand. You might need to draw out of your right hand holster with your left hand too. So it's something to think about. There's a bunch of different methods. I'm just going to do one where you basically reach over, draw the gun, it goes up under your underarm upside down, get a grip on it with your hand upside down, and move this arm of the way so you don't flag yourself, and extend with your left hand. There's a million different ways, but for the space I have in here and where the camera is and everything, I think it'll show it the best for what I'm doing. Just be careful. Obviously, this is probably not something you would do in a pistol range that's public because you're going to flag everybody. But it's something you could train at home with an empty weapon in a safe direction. Okay, so drawing, shooting 5 rounds from a right-handed holster with my left hand. Slow and ugly, but that's how it works. So this last stage is you shoot a round, you do a combat reload, you shoot a round. So I'm shooting this one round at 9, and I'm going to reload with this one round from the magazine holster and shoot it at 10, then reset, doing that 3 times for the last 6 rounds. I almost shot at the wrong circle. Caught myself as I was pulling the trigger. Alright, got that first one out pretty slow. I'm going to speed it up a little bit this time. If you're wondering why my weapon isn't locking to the rear every time, I have a tendency sometimes to hold this down with my thumb, the slide lock, so I'm not letting it lock to the rear. There's nothing wrong with the weapon, it's just how I hold the gun. Alright, last 2 rounds. Go ahead and get this set up and see if we can get some halfway decent time on this. Kind of garbage. The whole target's kind of a mixture of different types of garbages. And what I mean by that is, once again, I'm not just doing this for you, I'm doing this for me. And if I'm not pushing myself, then I'm sort of failing myself. And so some of these groups are way too tight. I should have been going faster. Sometimes the camera makes me slow down for whatever reason. Not because of pressure, but it's like I'm almost thinking that I got to go slow so you can see what I'm doing. And there's times for instructions where I need to go slow so you can see the movements and something like this. You would have been better served for me to go full speed. But anyway, here's the 5 shots. I mean, that should have been way faster. That's too good of a group to be getting something out of this. All this is kind of indicative of going a little too slow. Some weird mistake there as I'm preloading, and the recoil, coming back down from the recoil, kind of drifted up during the trigger pull with my left hand. Something I need to work on that. Actually, that was strong hand. Did better on my left hand, so I must have been jerking the trigger then, because that's downward for a one-handed shot at that 55-degree angle. And the other one, besides that, I actually pulled out. Is in the bang, 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 and I don't even remember feeling that mistake, but like I said, the target doesn't lie, it's right there. Now, listen, typically I don't pull a shot out of this stuff, so this is good for me. I did walk away a little humbled by this, especially now that I'm about to go upload it for potentially millions of people to look at. Not that millions of people ever watch my video. But it's good to get out here and make a mistake on this. And what I've found now that I've done this, if I'll put myself in just a regular sized target and shoot a little bit on the shot timer, I'll have some pretty good groups, because you're holding yourself to a pretty tight standard here in these dot tortures. And the reason I say it's a mixture of different types of garbages, you got 2 really bad mistakes here, okay, and then the rest of them are indicative of me going too slow. Okay, so this is as much a mistake, and what I'm trying to get out of this target as this is. Even though this is a perfectly beautiful little target of 5 rounds, or group of 5 rounds, it's too tight. I was going too slow. I don't win any points in a gunfight for having done this today. Heaven forbid in 5 years if I get in a gunfight, the fact that I put these tiny little holes in there isn't really going to pay as much dividends to me in that gunfight as would I've gone a little bit faster and pushed myself and still got in the circle. I hope that makes sense the way I'm explaining it. So anyway, this is the dot torture drill. This video is asininely long as it is, so bye.